Love Life, featuring your hosts Rebecca Detman and Jane Donovan.
The sun shines bright as it moves across my face. I feel the light.
I'm excited to receive new wisdom to continue my self-growth.
Welcome to Love Life. I'm Rebecca Detman.
And I'm Jane Donovan.
And today we are joined by another Rebecca. I hope that doesn't get too confusing. This is a Rebecca who we have actually mentioned on the show probably more than once before if you go back through our archives. She is an absolutely amazing healer based in Sydney who both Jane and I have seen a few times over the years and have also referred some of our Love Life tribe to. So those of you who are listening who've had a session with Rebecca will be jumping up and down and clapping your hands with glee today at what we've got to offer you. Now, Rebecca has been on her journey since about 2003, and she's one of these interesting spiritual sorts, not dissimilar to myself in the sense that we both lived very ordinary, sort of shut down suburban lives before we realised that we were so spiritual. And Rebecca is radically spiritual. I would say Rebecca surpasses most people in being radically spiritual. Rebecca started her own soul academy. It's a little bit like if you were to go to university and get a PhD in being cosmic, Rebecca is in charge of that. Rebecca is the healer that healers go to for healings. She is next level up. So she created Soul to Soul Dimensional Healing some time ago, which not only encompasses a healing centre with different sort of modalities and sessions that she does in person, but you can also, if you're listening in America, if you're listening in New Zealand, if you're listening in Portugal, Rebecca can handle you over Skype or phone, and she is just as powerful, even if it's across the technology bridge. But Rebecca has also channeled and downloaded a number of courses, ebooks, all kinds of written material, channeled material, amazing newsletters, amazing forecasts that she does. You definitely want to be on her email chain because she just brings through the most incredible updates about the energies of where the world and the collective consciousness is at a soul level and what's playing out energetically. She has incredible, unique perception that you are not hearing from any of the other major spiritual leaders at this time. And I can say that unabashedly, can't I, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care about Hay House. I don't care about who you're seeing as the celebrities out there. Rebecca is delivering cutting edge information. And to that extent, we call her a visionary. She is something of a new thought leader in this regard. And that is why we wanted to get her for an extended show today to really go into some spiritual concepts at quite a lot of depth. So rather than listening to my voice any longer, let's throw it across to Rebecca, who's sitting here giggling on Skype. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
And welcome to our show.
Thanks so much.
Jane, well, look, we'll have you anytime and again, and we may need to because, as we've already said before the show, we don't think we're going to cover off on everything Jane and I would love to talk to you about today. There's so much we want to talk about today. I'm going to throw to Jane to kick off with the very first question.
What I'm really fascinated by is the beautiful work that you've been doing around empath. And because so many of our listeners are HSPs, highly sensitive people, many, if not all of them, would also identify with being an empath. So I wondered if you can share a little about what you understand, what you know, maybe some tips and tools to help empaths in their journey.
Certainly. I just wanted to do a bit of a shout out to all those beautiful people in your tribe that I have connected with before, or even in other lifetimes I'm sure I've connected. I definitely feel at home with your tribe, so to speak, so I'm really happy to be here today. And a lot of the information and words that I bring through today, I like to try and just really bring it through in the moment. So I'm really, I feel connected to everyone. We say prayers and so forth beforehand, so we're really hoping to deliver exactly what you need today. And through the words that come through, there's actually a lot of energy, and I'm sure that's why a lot of you are drawn to listen to these amazing podcasts with Jane and Rebecca that I refer my clients to as well. And because there's so much beautiful energy that comes through. So I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you.
Anyway, the empath stuff, I'm really excited about it because, to be honest, what came through as I was putting together a course was far beyond what I ever imagined. And that's what often happens with me. It's in the process of the healing, in the process of the teaching, all this new stuff comes in because, I'm an open channel. And so for many years, I'm an empath, of course, and I started my journey and I look back at some of the bad habits that I had, particularly smoking. I was a smoker for 15 years. And so I really know that that was part of, like, literally my smokescreen to the world. And so as I started to obviously journey and work out my sensitivity, when the time was right, I gave up smoking. So, and obviously there's more than one reason for people smoking. So, it's not always as simple as that. But, yeah, that's one of the examples. So, people are empaths their whole lives, okay? And you talked about the term HSP and or highly sensitive person, and really I've seen that the term empath and HSP are very much aligned, that the HSP is probably more for people who are, just opening into that psychologically, mental, emotional phase, and the empaths probably a more well-known term in spiritual terms, so it's adding that spiritual element. But I think really you could probably put the terms together. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. There's no right or wrong with that. So really, I went through my journey, and many of you might have tried lots of things around looking after your empathy, and I certainly did. So tried the bubbles of light, the shields of protection, and all of that type of thing, which definitely helped, but they never got me to a sustained place of holding my light.
Rebecca, are you talking about the fact that empaths and highly sensitive people are commonly drained just by stepping out their front door, or by working with clients, as you might have been? What were you feeling? Overwhelmed, bombarded? What was going on?
I call it the overwhelmed empath. So often, for me, a lot of anxiety. That's one of the top symptoms. So anyone that comes in to see me, via Skype or via phone or in person, if they're having anxiety, 9 times out of 10, they're an empath. Probably 10 times out of 10, to be honest, but we don't want to bucket everyone into the same category. So largely they're an empath. Often fatigue. For me, fatigue's been a big one as well, and adrenal fatigue, because you're just constantly bombarded from the outside world, from other people's thoughts, other people's emotions, environments. You can walk into an environment and maybe there's been an argument before, and the energy of that argument's just in that space. Or it could even be historically, maybe there was a battle in that area, 1,000 years ago, and the energy's still there, and you might be picking that up. So we're really like a really big open, or like a sponge, really open, porous, and energy just pours into us. So if we don't manage that, we just get filled up with muck. And in the empath course that I put together, the number one, I say, sort of top issue for empaths is they do not know who they are.
What does that mean?
Well, they're so bombarded and filled up with other people's energy, they do not have a sense of their own energy. And this makes it very hard for them to step into their purpose, contribution, whatever, and just being happy and being themselves.
One of the things that I know a lot of empaths ask me is, how do you know when it's your stuff, or how do you know when it's their stuff, somebody else's stuff? How can you differentiate between, am I feeling this because this is my emotions, or am I feeling this because I've just taken on the other person's energy and emotion?
The key thing is, with all of this intuitive work, and it's things that we haven't trained with, is understanding and being able to feel different vibrations. That takes practice, or remembering, reopening, because it's all a natural skill. It's not a special gift. Everyone has the ability to discern different energies. And so that comes with a bit of practice. So you do need to start to, look after yourself and so forth. But the other thing is, often when, people come and see me, they say, I feel really great afterwards, because they're sitting 100% in their own energy. And often they've never felt it before. So the more that you sit in your own energy by doing the techniques, I say every day, doing the techniques, and in my course I've got, certain techniques that I recommend, then you get the feel of your own energy. So once you, really feel that and sort of anchor that feeling, become comfortable with that feeling, then of course you very easily know when something, we'll call it foreign, comes into your field. So it's really important to get to know your own energy. Now, if you're busy running around doing a million things a day, Deepak Chopra says we have 60,000 thoughts in a day, then you might be going, working 9 or 10 hours a day, and then you're running home to do all your chores and errands with the family, and then you collapse into bed at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Where's that space to get to know your own energy? There's no space there.
So I will often suggest that people really need to have alone time. And that means, nobody else in their vicinity, even their own family. So, for example, both my girls that are empaths, I'm quite happy for them to go into, I call it their girl caves, they're teenagers.
Yes.
Go into your girl cave and have your alone time and be in your own energy and space without anybody else in there. Do you think that is something that is really crucial, is to have alone time?
Definitely. That's part of I call it the Empath Care program.
I like that name. That's good.
My courses are very practical because I believe that I often talk about practical spirituality. Like, we're not in, a monastery or a temple secluded away from society. It has to work in everyday life. So I've got a bit of a schedule, and part of it is I call it empath downtime or processing time. But I just want to share something that's popping in is when I really first started doing the empath stuff that I channeled through last year. So there's a particular process which is about holding your light, and I want to speak to that in a moment. But I did it for the first time really thoroughly. It's a really thorough process. And before I went to sleep, so I'd actually do it every morning and every night. The next day, my husband, obviously who I sleep next to, he woke up and he was sick.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa. And I realised that obviously while we're sleeping and lying next to each other, I was absorbing his negative energy. And it was just part of, often people that are empaths, and particularly family and women, will do that because we think that's caring. And the funny thing is that, he probably had to deal with some stuff initially, but since then, he's actually expanded and taken more responsibility for himself and his vibration by me not absorbing his negative energy, because he had to almost go down a little bit and sit in his own crap. Sorry, are we allowed to say that?
Oh, yes, we do.
You have no idea.
And then he obviously didn't feel so good, and I've seen him take more responsibility through a healthier eating, less alcohol, just, more nourishment really for himself on all levels. And even talking about like meditating and stuff like that. So, and my husband's a tradesman, bricklayer, man's man.
I love this. So really, we think we're being kind in taking other people's stuff, but the reality is, of course, we're stopping them on their own individual journey and path.
From expanding.
There's just another reason to put yourself first and everybody else next.
And
that's, sorry. Yeah.
Well, no, you continue that thought.
I was just going to say, often when we first discover or not realise that we're an empath, we protect or do all the processes when we go into the outside world, to work, to the shopping centre, to the sports games and so forth. But actually I say to people, look at your own home. Look at the people who you are closest to, because often there's deep connections, their deep sense of responsibility, mothers and children, of course, husbands and wives, and all of parents, like elderly parents. There's a big theme of that at the moment. I've noticed people, taking on too much responsibility for their elderly parents and energetically. And so often they're the worst culprits, so to speak, and people forget to look there. So I'd really recommend that.
Rebecca, from a spiritual point of view, what do you think empath is all about down here on Earth? Because not everybody is, obviously, right?
No. And it's interesting because in my course that I've written, and it's an online sort of course, I thank all the beautiful people, clients, and colleagues and all the people that are empaths that have taught me so much. But I also thank the non-empaths, particularly my husband. He has shown me so much about what an empath is not, so I could understand it more deeply. So, for instance, when we go on holidays with the family, the extended family, I just cannot stay in the same room or apartment as everybody else.
That's me. I'm the same.
can't
Yep.
be around lots of people because we're absorbing all of their energy.
I have to have my own space to run away to.
I'm not staying with everybody else. And we used to get into quite a bit of a tiff about it, to be honest, because he just wouldn't understand, because he's not an empath. And then I realised after some time, I'm like, yeah, but that's not he's not that person. He's not that energy profile, you could say. And so he didn't get it. So, but I had to teach him and help him understand the way I work, this is why we're all here. And this is what I was amazed with as all the empath course came together, was that empaths are here to really, we are the new humans. So, I know you've talked about the shift in consciousness and so forth. So there is that massive shift going on, and we're moving into a new earth energy. Empaths have an energy field. Our energy field is different, okay? And we are designed to connect. So our energy field is very open. Now, the world at the moment is based in separation consciousness. Our energy fields are based in connection consciousness, the new earth energy. So you can see it's been a bit of a tough time for us.
It has. It has.
Learning to work with that, because we've been open books in this world where everyone's separate and there's a lot of fear and density, so to speak. So the thing is to really understand that it's a gift. Like, you're here to be the new human, and that's the very first module in my course, because I noticed that out there a lot of the teachings were fear-based. A lot of things say it's a curse and you've got to learn to manage it.
No, I'm 100% with you that it's a gift.
Yeah, it's a
and
gift.
I think in 170 odd, however many podcasts we've done, I think I've probably said it on 100 of them, because I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And I'm really feel blessed that both of my children have this gift.
Excellent.
Whereas when I first identified it in my now 16-year-old, when she was around 3 or 4, I was horrified. I went, oh no, that's the one thing I didn't want her to get from me.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we learn, we grow, and we realise it actually is an amazing gift. So I love that you do that, because we need the world to be we need all of our empaths to be embracing their gifts and to be standing in full power, to be getting their messages out there.
Yes.
And healing and teaching and leading and...
The other thing that I've noticed is what came through with the course that I've put together is it's all about holding your light. So a lot of the time they've shown me, and it's where the consciousness is at, so it's no right or wrong or judgment or anything like that, but a lot of the older courses, the earlier information that came out was fear-based and still in that fear separation consciousness. So they're always talking about, I'm getting attacked all the time, protect yourself from psychic attack and all of that type of thing. Like, it is that bombardment. But what it's all about is operating through a love basis, and through wholeness. So I talk about holding our light. We don't actually need to call on any outside protection. What we simply need to be is tuning to our light, our essence of who we are, and imagine that expanded through our whole field, and imagine that having like a clear definition. You could even say it's like defining your sacred space. Now, there's nothing more powerful in the universe than love. It's the only truth, So you can have, we can talk about some of the old fear-based. You can have entities come in and lost spirits and all of that sort of thing. They can't touch you when you're vibrating pure love.
It's interesting to hear you to touch on this now, because this does segue into the next question. Jane and I have done 2 episodes of late, one on the old school traditional psychics and the way we used to kind of look at stuff, and a lot of that fear-based fear-mongering that you're referring to. Secondly, I know that you and I had a conversation on the phone maybe 2 or 3 months ago about the breakdown of spiritual dogma and the collapse of the guru culture, which we also did a show on, but I'd love you to extrapolate on that a little bit today. And there's been something that's been challenging me a lot as a practitioner lately, Rebecca, and I would love to hear you further articulate this, because I know that you can brilliantly, is that for a long time, and because of off the back of Abraham Hicks, so many of us have used that paradigm or that model, that spiritual model when we're working with clients, which is about you attracting in, there's a part of yourself that's still wounded. So the part of yourself that, that's what shows up in the world. And so somebody comes in who's a toxic person, or you attract an illness, or you attract something in a car crash or whatever it is in your life. And it's that idea that you created that.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling more and more like I'm disempowering people by using that language. I'm feeling like it's almost like putting it on them in a way that's totally unfair. It's like saying, yeah, you caused that car crash, and then just leaving people feeling it's not... Abraham...
Disempowered.
It is disempowered. Abraham doesn't quite word it that way, and I think that's part of the problem, is that when humans begin to... re-communicate his original messages. It's a bit like the Bible, isn't it? It all just gets watered down and goes through different filters and agendas, and it doesn't come out sounding quite right. What do you want to say on this enormous topic?
What has been coming through me lately, and I know it's going to be a big body of work for me, is the divine human and the new earth. So I might even have a whole separate website on it, I don't know. So Spirit's been feeding through, drip feeding, wisdom around, well, what is the new earth? What is the new human? And one of the key things, so I don't know where it sits with you, Rebecca, because is that all new humans, to be sort of, you could say, aligned with that energy, is full responsibility as a co-creator. So the reality is that you have created that. So
that does sit right with you?
Yes, 100%. They cannot be more clear. I've worked a lot with it this year, particularly in the end of last year, on clearing the vibration of blame. So the opposite to responsibility is blame, polarity. So they're saying if we're in any sort of blame, then we are not taking full responsibility as a co-creator.
So you've got people like Michael Brown in New Zealand who does something called the presence process, and he works a lot with people with, unrelenting physical pain and tumours and cancers and all that kind of stuff. And, his whole take is forget all of that, just sit with whatever emotion comes up and love it. Yes. And it's that simple. It's like Buddha. It's that simple.
This is where a lot of, the stuff that's coming through now is, are you looking at that and trying to heal it and work with it from the eyes of the ego or the whole self? So Michael Brown is really talking about, which is a lot of my work now as well, is we always approach everything, every bit of spirituality, every bit of our journey from the whole self, from the divine self. Whereas that's why I sort of mentioned the whole thing about spiritual dogma. A lot of the time we've been approaching this journey through the ego.
Because it's still being filtered through human minds and just, yeah. It's like how they always say man makes religion.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all about wholeness now. I've been calling it, I've got an article brewing called The Tale of Two Selves, because like Tale of Two Cities, because I always loved that book. Charles Dickens, I love it. Was Charles Dickens,
yes, yeah.
And so that just thought popped into me, and I realised that in a way we've been approaching enlightenment or ascension, whatever you want to call it, through the mind, ego. Through the mind-ego loop. We're talking about that mind-ego fear loop, which is part of our experience here. The truth is that we're already enlightened, that we're already whole and complete. We've simply forgotten. And the forgetting is in all of those layers of woundings and issues and so forth. So what's really becoming clear to me, and this might explain a little bit more with your question there as well, is that the ego cannot love itself.
The ego can, did you say? It just broke up a little bit then.
Yeah, the ego cannot love itself.
Oh, cannot love itself.
Yes. The only part that can love itself or love the ego is your divine essence, is your whole self. People put lots of words around it. I call it essence.
So do you feel it's okay for the higher self to love and accept and honour and respect the role of ego?
Yes, 100%.
Good. Beautiful.
Because the ego fear mind loop is part of our experience of separation. So it is always in fear and separation consciousness, third dimension, because that's its role, to give us the polarity to have our experiences.
And that is your definition of ego. For those who are listening or new on their spiritual journey and they say, what does it mean when people always use the word ego? Because it's not the dictionary definition. In spiritual talk, we have a different definition of what ego actually means. What does it mean, Rebecca?
Well, that's a good question. It is the part of us that believes it's separate.
And blocks. I think it's like a blocker. It's sort of it almost like it's got this nasty role to inhibit as much as it can your spiritual growth by being the little voice. Yeah, keep us in fear. Little voice in your head that says you just made that up. You didn't really know that. That's not good for you. That's not best for you. Don't do that. Who do you think you are to do that? It's that sort of little devil on the shoulder.
Which we just recently recorded a podcast about, making friends with fear. And that actually, if people want to, that they might want to listen to that in conjunction with this particular topic.
So how do we kill the ego?
Well, there's the thing. We stop trying to kill the ego. We love the ego. No, we just see it for what it is. So sometimes different, teachings will talk about the ego like that little naughty child, and really when we punish that naughty child, there's actually, this is a little bit more advanced for those that are beginners, but when we punish the naughty child, we're actually in super ego. So there's actually a super ego as well. And that's the ego of the ego.
Is that like how we have a higher self or an oversoul? All different words for these sorts of concepts.
If you've made a mistake and that voice comes in and you think it's your higher self going, oh, that wasn't right, a spiritual person wouldn't do that, or you didn't say the right thing there, that because a voice that's punishing or judgmental, even though you think it might be your higher self, because maybe technically, I know there is no right or wrong, but, technically, you might have felt you were wrong in that moment. That is your super ego. It's the ego of the ego, that's the super ego judging the ego. Because the higher self, the place that comes from love, would never come through with a voice of any judgment. It'd just come through with a loving warmth and a support. That's right, okay. Definitely. So just think of the ego like a naughty child, and obviously we know if we keep punishing a naughty child, and I'm not talking about, clear boundaries are really important, but just sort of if you keep, abusing, because your ego really abuses you, a naughty child, then they're going to get worse, aren't they? Whereas if you love a naughty child, then they're going to respond and start to get on your team. And we want the ego on our team rather than battling against us. And a great example that popped in this morning was one of the tools that I know you guys have recommended is mirror work. So we've all tried it usually, and I highly recommend it. But when I know for me, I stood in front of the mirror and I'd be like, I love and approve of myself and so forth. And the first thing that comes in is, no, you can't do that. No, you're not. You're no good. Stop being silly, and all of those voices. And I listen to them. And really, I know now, looking back, that was my ego and my super ego judging me. Whereas I feel what would be nice with the mirror work is just to take a few moments to breathe into your essence. And this is the key work now. We need to connect with our essence, our wholeness, our divine self. So I come back to the tale of two selves. We are identifying as our ego. We call ourselves Rebecca, Jane, Rebecca here, and we think of ourselves as this personality, this body and all of that type of thing. But actually the consciousness is shifting now, and that's the divine human energies, where we are our pure essence in a physical form. So it's about actually starting to transcend the ego personality. So when you do your mirror work, take a few moments to connect with who you really are, the larger self. And that's the part that can love yourself. So for all self-love work, realise that the ego cannot love itself, but you have to take some time to open and connect what's already there, but we forget that essence, and allow that to be the influencer in your life and to work through you.
I can just feel everybody taking a beautiful deep breath and going, that feels so good. I'm free to be me.
Yes.
And the interesting thing that I say is your essence, your true self, we really access that through the heart, and it's a feeling. So everyone's out there going, who am I? It can't be defined with the mind. It's a feeling. So go to your heart, just breathe into that, have that intent to connect with your essence, and it will be so.
Oh, I love that.
The more that you do that, the more you remember in everyday life, and it comes through more and more. And really, when you look at our journeys, that's what we've become, isn't it? We've just embraced more of who we are, our essence.
Rebecca, when you mentioned 5-10 minutes ago about how we are all enlightened, but there's just been so much forgetting that's gone on for so long. I mean, with your channeling and remembering past life work, etc., that you've done with the ancient world, and back in the times when there were the sacred mystery cults, the temples, the whatever the Egyptians were up to, whatever the Babylonians were up to, all of the indigenous tribes, etc., etc. Do you feel that in the ancient world or in those dimensions, in those times, we really did know it all and have it all? Were we enlightened and somehow we lost it?
I've done a lot of work in Atlantis and Lemuria and cleared a lot of past lives around that, because we've had a collective Atlantean wounding that we needed to work through. That's largely been done. My feeling is, yes, we were very enlightened in those times. I'm still sitting with how enlightened we were, whether I don't want to go into too much detail here because I don't want to confuse anyone, but often with Atlantis they say that we were our fifth dimensional selves, our soul selves in a physical body, and we're very connected with spirit. My feeling now, and this is just what's been coming through my channel, is actually the divine human is more than that. We are our full God presence in a physical body. And my feeling is, I'm not sure if the Atlanteans were, but I haven't sat and explored it too much yet, but I just had this awareness not so long ago. I'm like, and the spirit told me this is the first time, so the new Earth, new human, it's the first time it's been done before on Earth. So
when people bandy around the term now, fifth dimension, or there's so many different terms for it, interchangeable terms for it. So you feel that fifth dimension is what you just defined being your spiritual soul in a human body, but you're saying it's actually something different than that right now.
Yes. So there's higher self and soul. They're sort of the same terms, okay? And that's our fifth dimensional self. But remember, our soul is still a construct. So the essence of the divine source energy doesn't have any form to it. Our gifts, our talents, our identity, everything in this life that we term soul is actually still a construct. It's still, at the end of the day, not who we are.
Oh, it's deep, isn't it?
No, very deep.
I'm going, this is like, 5 PhDs later. Wow.
That's the funny thing. That's what's coming up in the clip work that I'm doing. So people are ready to understand this and to realise, it's like at the moment we're stripping down all identity. And, this is not everyone. This is obviously when you hit that part of the journey, but stripping down all identity and stripping down all concepts you think you are. So really what you become, your physical vessel, your human form, is a direct conduit for divinity, and that's the divine human. And it's awesome. I'm not saying I'm a divine human, but I definitely have those experiences and feel my divinity flowing through me, and it's effortless, and it doesn't have any attachment to purpose, significance, or anything like that. You're just simply being a divine vehicle and watching where that river flows. And I was watching a beautiful, enlightened one, I don't know, called Muji. Have you heard of Muji?
No.
Mooji, and he's an Indian sort of guy, I guess, and he's just a beautiful, pure love in form. And he said the other day, I was watching a YouTube, that we are not living, we are being lived.
Yes, the Seth books say something similar, I believe, about the breath is breathed through us. We don't breathe the breath, it like source or life energy breathes it through us.
Oh, I love that.
So it's a time, and this year being a planetary year number 9, it is a time of completion, of letting go, a bit of a life review. Are you happy with where you're at and so forth in your life? So it's really a good time to really look into your heart, not your mind, look into your heart and really look at what you have created so far in your life. And is it what you feel that you want from the heart? And that's one of my other things about spiritual dogma, that a lot of it so far have been creating through ego. And I'll put myself in that bucket too. We've been creating what we think we want through the ego, when really, actually, deep down, the divinity doesn't want or need anything. But, you know, there is an expression. We just have to follow that expression here in the moment to moment, and starting to really just follow that river of creation through us. Whereas the ego thinks, oh, I need lots of money, I need a boyfriend, you know, a partner, I need this. Does your heart really, really need that at this time? Or is it what you think you need and want? So I'm not saying there's any right or wrong. It doesn't mean you can't get lots of money, you can't have great holidays and have your partner and all of that, but it's like really sitting in the heart. So a perfect example of that was me at the beginning of the year. So obviously I have a lot of workshops and so forth that I teach, and every year at the beginning of the year, it's just something I do through the mind. I put together my calendar for the whole year, and I offer a scholarship and everything. So that's part of the reasons I like to have it all mapped out for the year. And so I was a bit delayed this year. Usually I do it at the beginning of January, like New Year's, and I was sort of, dragging my feet with it. Oh, I have to do that. And then I sat down about the 3 weeks into January and I planned it all out, put it on the website. It was quite a lot of effort, to be honest. And I went into meltdown about 2 days later. I went into that overwhelm that you get maybe when you have a really busy time, when there's lots of projects going on. And it was the beginning of the year and I've just had 4 weeks holidays. I was like, this is strange. What's going on? And Spirit said to me, we cannot operate in the same way that we always have. That was through the mind, what I thought I should do. And part of that was responding to, clients need to know because they've got to plan their year 2 and all of that type of thing. So I took myself off on silent retreat, hired an Airbnb, about an hour's drive from Sydney. So it was all very simple. I could, buy my groceries on the way and sat in my heart for a few days. And that was really fascinating because this year I'm not meant to teach so much. I'm actually meant to be writing and creating new material, especially around that divine human new earth stuff. So it was a really beautiful lesson for me that I've then obviously got the wisdom from that to be able to share with everybody else. And I've seen that, that questions come up a lot for clients. What's in your heart to create, not what's in your mind.
Lovely. Now you touched a little bit on what's in store for 2016, and you've written an amazing energy report. Can you share a little bit more about what's going to be going on this year?
Yeah, it's really exciting because everything that we have been sort of, foreseeing in a way about the shift in consciousness, it is actually happening. Sometimes you think, am I making all this up? Are we going crazy?
I guess we thought it in 2012 it was going to happen, 2013, 14, etc. So really, here we are. It's actually happening.
And you can see that. So this year, as I mentioned, is the number 9 year on the planet. So it's really worth asking yourself, what do I need to complete? What do I need to let go of? Also, the key word that came through for me is consolidation. So just like we were talking about before, Rebecca, with the full responsibility as a co-creator, what I've seen is that people need to consolidate healthy habits. And that means mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So, look at what you're doing to nurture yourself. Look at what you're doing to connect with your divinity. Are you making time for meditation? So I saw that, it's really shifting into these healthy habits. Consolidation was a key word, and also community and collaboration. So one of the things that's been happening is obviously when you look at the statistics, I don't know who's developed the statistics, but I just know from a lot of the work that I do, a lot of the people really, practicing spirituality are women. And often they do it on their own. So they go to meditation groups, they go to psychic circles and so forth, then they go home and they switch it all off. And so...
I call those
really
unspiritual moments.
Yeah. what I feel this year is it's about now getting together in groups and expanding that, because if you really think about it, the world's not going to change if there's just all these isolated people doing the work. It has to come into family. It has to come into schools. And there's definitely, all of that's going on, but it just has to, be ramped up now. So if, I'm in the process of creating a guide, for instance, on how to start a spiritual group at home. So you can just get together and create a sacred space and share together. One of the things that I run, and it's a movement all over the world, is called Red Tent Women's Circles.
I think you've talked Beck's talked about you doing that on podcast before.
Tell us about red tents.
Red tents are fantastic because they happen on the new moon, so it's aligning with the natural rhythms and cycles, and it's about women coming together, really stripping away again all that judgment and competition that can often happen through women's circles, and just being your true self and being open to share. So we have, there is always sort of a theme depending on where the new moon is, which star sign it's in, if it's in Virgo or Aries or whatever, there's different activities. But really the essence of it is connecting through the heart and just being nurtured and supported with wherever you are at. So there's no judgment if you come in and you just really feel depressed, or you might just feel really happy and joyous to be there. There's no, it's totally open with your emotions. And we have a sharing circle. We tap into, we might do oracle card readings. My last red tent I ran at the beginning of the year was all about Divine Mother, and we did some sort of, healing exercises. We did a wonderful exercise actually where there's some beautiful self-love cards that I have, and they had to pair up. I didn't realise this, it all came through moment to moment. They all sat down on their chair before they came in, they had a self-love card. But then they had to I had to get someone to read it to them until they actually received that affirmation, that compliment. I thought it would be a 5-minute exercise. It took half an hour.
Wow.
It took that long for people to receive the energy authentically of that beautiful affirmation sort of compliment. Like there were things like, you are a divine child, you are beautiful, accept your beauty, that type of thing. So it took half an hour.
Why is that?
I think there's a culture with women, obviously there's a lot of worth issues and people not seeing their inner beauty, and there's many issues to it, but a lot of the time women don't want to, they feel not good enough and so forth, so they didn't want to receive the compliments.
You're helping me do a fantastic segue. Yeah. This is you're making my next tangent easy for me, Rebecca, because divine feminine has been bandied around now for a long time, and it's almost become an overused term, and the term that's actually become neglected, that we actually know very little about, is divine masculine, which is, I would argue at the moment, maybe more important, really, because there's a lot of lost boys out there
100%.
And lost men and Donald Trump, etc. So you have a phrase that you call new paradigm relationships, which I believe probably feeds into some of this theory. Can you extrapolate on all of this for our listeners?
Sure. Every year it's part of the energy report, so you can read more about it on the website. But there is I align with a chakra for each year, and it just sort of moves up the chain, so it's pretty easy to see. But this year is actually the year of the divine masculine. So it's super exciting because, as you said, there hasn't been a lot about the divine masculine. And to be honest, when I first started tuning in, I sort of started getting it ahead of time. So it started coming in last year, the sort of second half of last year. It was like, the Spirit said to me, well, you don't know much about the divine masculine because you haven't experienced it. And that's the planet. We haven't experienced really the divine masculine probably since Atlantis.
We've been in the shadow side of masculinity, which is violence, strength, ego, domination, etc.
Yeah.
And I actually read something myself online that I found really quite interesting. This for me just summed it up beautifully, so maybe the analogy will help others. They described somebody who's in the light side of their masculinity, or in their divine masculine, as somebody who would be like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because if you look at Obi-Wan in the Star Wars movies, he has all the power, he has all the strength, he has all the knowledge, but he doesn't just use it. Like, I mean, he doesn't just knock out a football field full of people with one flick of his hand with force. He doesn't just go around wantonly killing or showing off or making a point or making decisions from a lower place. He acts from a place of zen, calm, peace. He really holds that monkish quality about him as an advanced warrior soul, but in the divine masculine. And I really got that. I could see that really clearly.
Yeah, that's great, because I think at the moment we do need examples, because as we said, we haven't experienced it. So I really like that. Thank you. I'll use that one if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've also been thinking of examples. Sometimes I give to clients and why so many women have connected with Archangel Michael, because I feel that he embodies that energy too. So he's really big and strong, and a lot of the pictures, you know, they've got him in...
He's got a hot six-pack.
Yeah, and he's got golden hair, a bit like a Fabio, you know.
Isn't he? It's true. It's true.
And but he's very loving, gentle, powerful, but doesn't misuse the power. And so, but the beautiful thing is that we're starting to see actual real examples coming up. And the key thing is the divine masculine and the divine feminine, they both operate through wholeness. So the divine masculine and the feminine too, but we're not going to talk about that so much, but the divine masculine completely honours, respects and loves the feminine.
And that I've actually only just launched, so I'm excited to hear that my timing is right, because I just launched 3, 4, 5 weeks ago a men's only online course.
Excellent.
About it is for single men to attract women, but actually hearing what you're saying, it actually is all about that, and I'm really excited. The timing's right. Yay! I'm fascinated. Is Russell Brand an example?
I must admit I haven't seen too much of him.
I'm fascinated by him. He's a little bit like Jesus looking, and
he's a bit crazy at times, doesn't he? But he's totally himself, which I love. I'd have to be honest, I couldn't make a call on that right now. I feel like I can't unless I experience more. An example, another example that I can think of that really touched me and, again, just opened my heart so much, because I was like, it's here, was, it depends on the listeners around this state, but I'm in Sydney, New South Wales, and I've grown up with NRL football, the rugby league. And so excuse anyone who doesn't follow it, but I can share the example. Last year, the team that won the grand final, North Queensland, Jonathan Thurston, he's a pretty famous footballer. They won. It was really exciting. They hadn't won before and all of that type of thing. And so he was, you know, he's a big, beautiful, tough man footballer, you know, and the captain of his team. And so he celebrated probably for about 1 or 2 minutes with his team, and cheering. And then he went straight across to his fiancée and little, about 2-year-old daughter, and spent at least a few minutes with them. Camera was on him the whole time, kissing them, kissing his daughter on the lips. It was so sweet. And hugging, you know, kissing and hugging his fiancée and just talking to them. He was fully present with them. The cameras were in his face. He didn't even notice that they were there. And I was so excited to see that, because he was honouring the feminine in his journey, and I thought that's the divine masculine in action right there.
So what is a new paradigm relationship, Rebecca?
Really, the old paradigm relationship, I say, is based in unmet need to unmet need. So the two people coming together have woundings that create these unmet needs in them.
It's like two inner children having a tantrum in a sandbox, isn't it?
So something, you know, something within that person attracts you because it's a need that you have within. And sometimes over time, I believe that everyone comes together for a reason. There's always soul lessons there. But over time, that those needs, you might not need that anymore. You might resolve it within yourself. So often, you know, for instance, you might be not very good at making decisions. So you attract someone in who's quite a, you know, type A personality, and they make all your decisions for you, and you love that. It balances really well. But perhaps over time you work with that and heal that, and you grow and change, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was attracted to them. They're so controlling. And then, of course, the flames start and possibly you might separate. So, but the new paradigm relationships are essence to essence, or some people call it I am presence to I am presence, connecting heart to heart in full awareness of who you are. So you're identifying with your larger self, seeing each other as whole and complete. So in that, I'll share it because it's been coming up in the last couple of weeks. Some really good advice for your listeners is to see your partner as whole and complete. If you focus on their ego personality and their wounding, their issues, it's going to expand, because that's the laws of the universe. But if you see them as whole and complete, they actually rise to meet that. It's fascinating. It's worked with my husband. For years I've tried to fix him, and try and get him to do more housework and all of that type of thing, and nag. And one day I just dawned on me to see him actually as this beautiful, amazing, divine being, that he's everything that he needs, has everything there that, he has everything there. He's a divine being, and it's amazing. And I stopped trying to change or fix him because I stopped seeing his wounding, and he has stepped up to the point that he does things around the house. That was probably one of my biggest issues, without being asked.
It's just
nice.
It's like miraculous, isn't it? I actually remember reading a story many years ago as well about a woman who used to come to one of those support groups for like alcoholism, domestic violence or something, because she was being battered, and she would go home and be battered, and she'd come back to her little spiritual group, and she'd go home and be battered, she'd come back to her little spiritual group. And what she started to do, she didn't leave him for whatever reason, but she just started to love him, like in the way that you're saying, and she just started to just send him unconditional, non-judgmental love. She healed the entire situation and the marriage and the violence, which sounds preposterous, and I almost from a professional point of view wouldn't recommend that as a tool. Like, I'd rather say get out of the house first, then worry about love. But this woman, for whatever reason, she was trapped in that situation, so she did all that she could, and it worked. This sort of work is incredibly powerful. Footnote, nobody said it was easy. No. Or that it is easy. It can be incredibly hard. Rebecca, do you think you need to be able to view yourself as whole and love yourself whole first before you can extend it to another? Or
that's a good idea. Definitely try and always, everything starts from within. So, earlier I was talking about not identifying with your ego anymore, seeing yourself as your whole self. So really our outer world reflects our inner world. So it's important, definitely always start with yourself first, and then you can ripple that out. And often when you do it within yourself, it ripples out anyway, and it's pretty effortless. So always start with yourself first. There's no point seeing someone else as whole and complete if you're in a horrible situation and so forth. But also the story that comes to mind is Doreen Virtue tells a story. She's the angel intuitive lady that a lot of people know, where she was being mugged. She was in LA and she got mugged, and she knew, she said in that instant, that he had a gun and he was going to kill her. And so she called on Archangel Michael, and she basically sent unconditional love to this person, and he took a bag and ran away.
To have the wits about you to be able to do that level of concentrated spiritual work in a moment of terror is next level, though.
That's mastery. It
is spiritual mastery.
But I think these people, like the story that you mentioned with the battered lady, they're here to show us that potential.
That it is possible.
So we might not be able to do it in those extreme moments, but it doesn't mean that we don't stop trying to do that in everyday life and in, other challenging moments in our life. We try our best with it, and maybe we will get to that point of mastery, like, in like those stories that we told. So I think it's always something we should, really be mindful of. And that's one of the other themes of this year is all about the mind, divine mind, and letting go of that lower mind, that chatter, and stepping more into heart consciousness. Big shift around that this year.
I'm excited to receive new wisdom to continue my self-growth.
Clearly, we could talk to Rebecca for years and years and still never get to the end of the fascinating, interesting subject matter to be mined. Rebecca, I hope that you've enjoyed yourself today on the show.
I have. I could keep talking forever as well.
Oh,
So.
it's beautiful and such a privilege and an honour. Thank you for your amazing wisdom and beautiful energy.
One of the reasons I will often refer people who come to me onto Rebecca next is because, and this is my way of wording it, Rebecca, you might have a different way, but I see that some of the work Rebecca does is very, very next level, in that if you're walking around in this lifetime and you've done quite a lot of self-development work, or you're quite consciously aware and spiritually plugged in, but there's still something that's just missing that you've never been able to put your finger on, I think that Rebecca is extraordinary in her ability to almost zoom out, as it were, bird's eye view, to really look at your entire soul journey. She can really look at the evolution of where your soul's travelled, where it's from, if you've ever made any sacred oaths or vows or promises in your soul journey that perhaps are working against you now, that you've forgotten about, that are still holding you back, or where you may have had a soul trauma or a soul wound or a soul tear, as we call it. She can go in through, I don't know how she does it, grids, energy layers, levels, whatever. She fixes stuff at a level that I think is quite complementary to some of the more practical everyday tools people are using, like their affirmations, their meditation. They might be getting muscle testing, but to have a clean out at such a deeper, almost grid-like level, I think the two often need to go hand in hand when somebody is really working on a soul wound. Does that sound about right, Rebecca?
Yes, I think so. It really, even yesterday, that was one of the questions that I had, where people have done quite a bit of work and they can't seem to push past this issue. And I really feel the energies are falling on that now. I feel like the word came through yesterday, time releases are happening in people's souls. Ooh. Where it's really bringing through the energies to help to get them to resolve, showing up their issues. And I think we do need to go deeper at this time. So don't be afraid.
No. So for those of you who are brave enough to look into your soul wounds at an amazing level, soul2soul.com.au is where you can book online to get a session from anywhere in the world with Rebecca. She is amazing. I've used her, 7 times more, maybe, met you a couple of times. Soul2soul.com.au. And of course, thank you so much for joining us on the Love Life Show, where Jane and I are striving to keep delivering the highest quality spiritual content and emotional and relationship content for your lives to help you improve yourselves and hence the world. And if you need any more tools or products or backlog catalogue of our shows, please head over to lovelifeshow.com. And until this time next week, have fun putting into practice some of the ideas and techniques that Rebecca Brown has shared with us today.
Life is perfect, I'm not trying, it's just happening.